I'm Renee Ballard and the host of Let's Talk Design. Today's guest is Desmond Chung. Desmond is based in Hong Kong, where he's the Vice President of Creative Management with blockchain and Web3 specialist brand Collectiv. Before arriving at this role, Desmond has spent the past 10 years working in all areas of content creation and media production throughout Asia. Desmond has a long rap sheet of achievements, but just to give you a peek into some of his accolades, during his time as Creative Director of Talon Sports, Desmond grew the esports and gaming platform's social media following to up to over 600,000 followers. He's produced live online tournaments that have clocked up over 10 million live view streams. And then, capitalising on that momentum, Desmond successfully secured sponsorship deals with Paris Saint-Germain, Football Club and Nike. And then shifting away from the gaming landscape, Desmond has also worked in film and television production, where he's strategized, shot and produced ad campaigns for global brands such as Qantas and Apple. And currently he's also working on a new film project. Hey, Desmond.
Hi, that was quite an intro. Hi, Renee. Thank you so much for having me.
My absolute pleasure. I'm almost out of breath. It's a good intro. I could say it's a good rap.
Sounds so convoluted.
It's been a juicy 10 years. So how I know Desmond is we met back in Hong Kong in 2017 through a bunch of mutual networks. And the more I got to know Desmond, the more impressed I became with his dedication to his career. So Desmond grew up in Tasmania, where he studied finance. Then 10 years ago, he left for Hong Kong to pursue a career in digital content creation, which is no easy task. But it's his passion for pop culture that I enjoy the most about him. And I once remarked to Desmond years ago that the Royals were so overrated, and Desmond instantly shot back, "Oh, please, everyone knows Posh and Becks are the real Royals." It was a long time ago, but that stopped me in my tracks. I was like, you're right.
Yeah, I think from then I was like, oh, we're going to get along just fine.
Just fine. That, and then another conversation we had was over watches and the Panerai. I was like, I like the cut of your jib.
Likewise. Yeah. It's problematic in Hong Kong because that stuff is just everywhere. So, yeah.
So, getting amongst it, can you tell me about the journey of growing up in Tassie, studying finance, fast forward, media digital content creation, Hong Kong?
All right. So I grew up in Hobart, Tasmania. I went to school there locally. I grew up mainly around Blackmans Bay for the first sort of part of my childhood, and then I went to a Christian school first, and then after that I went to a private Quaker school called Friends. Both were really, really great schools, and I would say that the experiences there really gave me an idea of what I should expect from relationships with people, friendships, and even culturally what I should expect from different people, and just how to be a good friend, to be honest. So I think it was kind of a mixed bag growing up, especially considering my first school was primarily Dutch. So all my friends' last names Van der Wood, Van der Laan, and everyone else had blonde hair and blue eyes apart from me. But because I sort of grew up with them, we all got along really, really fine, and it was never there was never this point of difference, I think, until we all got a little bit older and just realized that we had a bit of a different family or whatever. And then fortunately for me, being raised like that, my father had a big hand in I guess you could say directing me towards what I would eventually do in my career. So early on in life, art, culture, film, literature, poetry was a big priority in my household. My father always felt as though just because growing up where I did, he didn't want my English to suffer, and he didn't want my teachers to think that my English was suffering because I was Chinese or I was Asian. So home was a big part of my education. So that was from a very young age, my father would always engage with me in terms of he'd get me to listen to really famous albums, read really famous books, watch really famous movies, and he would just sit there and explain to me sort of the context of what was happening, or the morals behind the story. And if I couldn't say words properly or pronounce words properly, he'd find an excerpt of literature, whether it be a poem or a song, and we'd kind of he'd get me to sort of like recite it so that I would understand things in a larger context. And I sort of fell in love with all those things at a really young age. And I think growing up in Tasmania, because there's not that much of a city and everything, like I would just enjoy reading comics, reading books, TV, music at home a lot of the time. And that was kind of like my cultural education. And I think that in Australia, we're actually quite fortunate because I think the mainstream media that we consumed, especially in the 90s, and I don't know if this is completely true in terms of numbers, but it felt like a third of our content was like from the UK, so like BBC and that sort of content. And then the other third of it was American content. And then the other third of it was homegrown Australian content. So like a day after school would be like, you know, everything from on TV would be everything from like Naughty to like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to Neighbours, just in the span of an afternoon. And I think that whether Australians realize it or not, especially around my age, like these millennials, we exposed to a lot of different culture, and it's been super useful. And so getting to Hong Kong, you know, my partner at the time, she had always known that I was fascinated with pop culture and had always sort of wanted to work around or in that industry. And she basically said to me like, oh, you're so braggadocious and you have such a big mouth. Why don't you come to Hong Kong and to a big city and see if you can actually compete, right? And so, yeah, it was like the biggest challenge of my life. And
she gave you like a double dare. Remember that TV show, Dare, Double Dare? She gave you the double dare.
Exactly. It was a huge learning experience because even though culturally at home, a lot of things are Chinese, going to a new city, new country and everything, especially from a place like Hobart, was still a huge difference, especially living and working there. You know, I think that I was a little bit of in a panic mode while I first got to Hong Kong. I just didn't know what I was going to do or how I'd do anything. And I was just basically saying yes to everything, like English tutoring, writing people's homework, writing people's websites. And then very fortunately for me, I don't know how this happened, but I talked myself into doing a freelance contract with a company, and they wanted me to make 60 viral videos a month for them. That was my first step into like making viral content. And yeah, funnily enough, the guy that had contracted me to do it actually taught me how to make viral videos. And he was over 50. And he had this really great way, like these principles that he would stand by. And then that's how I got into the content creation and marketing strategies on one side. And then on the other side, someone else had asked me to be a runner in a Qantas commercial, funnily enough. And so I was sort of doing two things at the same time. And that was like just around the time I started to meet you as well. So that's kind of how it all turns. I think that when I came to Hong Kong, I was playing like a lot of expats and stuff too, very cliche, like playing the English speaking card, playing like, I guess like being from Western countries sort of a card, but also trying to show that like culturally I understand you guys enough, so I'm not going to be like a complete novelty or a complete point of difference in, you know, when I'm working with you guys. And yeah, it was like just building up from there. And, a couple of those times playing those cards did work, right? Like, I finally got to a production where my first experience working with directors and production and cinematographers from Hollywood. And that was like very scary to me at first, very like nerve-wracking because I actually knew his work. I was a fan of a lot of the things that he'd done. And, you know, from the first conversation that we had, which was just about movies and what movies I'd liked and why, he was like, all right, you're sticking with me every day now. I don't want to deal with anyone else. I just want to deal with you. And so, funnily enough, that circles back to like just growing up and watching like, you know, these ultra violent movies at a young age and this sort of thing. And I think it's because at that point, maybe people at that level, it felt like they weren't looking just for like the technical skill. They wanted to know if we were on the same page culturally, like if they could reference something and, you know, we could understand it and be on the same page. So that was like I said, it is one of those cards, but like luckily for me, like growing up with all that TV and everything and just watching too many movies and stuff, it's like all of a sudden those sort of like intangible weird things became important. And that's kind of the thing I kept on playing for a while. Yeah. And trying to upskill myself as well. But yeah, that first part was really like first big step into it. Yeah.
I think pop culture is one of the super fascinating things because I don't know, some people really look down on pop culture and they really identify as, you know, subculturalist, but, you know, it starts as subculture, it reaches swell and it pops into popular culture, like becomes super popular. And I get what you mean, like when you're talking about old school TV, because when I was a kid, so I'm a good 10 years older than you, when I was a kid, Monkey Magic would be on every day after school. And I just lived for, I reckon I was about 30 until I realised it was dubbed. But Trippy Tarka, Monkey, Sandy, these were my people. These were like, and you know, I had no idea the reverence of the show or anything like that, but these great plot lines. I don't know if you saw the episode where the Queen of Night and the King of Day have a fight. And so half the kingdom is stuck working 24/7 and the other half is sick of being sleepy. And I was like, classic. And then there was that weird sexual tension between Trippy Tarka and Monkey.
You know, I've heard some people refer to it as their sexual awakening as well. Yeah, that show, yeah.
Yeah, right on. And especially because the characters were so saucy, like Pigsy. What a saucy minx.
Super sassy, yeah.
Oh, he was like Benny Hill of the Monkey Magic world. But yes, so I get what you mean. And I think it's fun, like all these years later, to draw on that. And it's funny as well, you're talking about your dad and what he taught you, because we have, you know, I have an 11-year-old and I'm trying to teach her everything about, for whatever reason, I'm obsessed with Liza Minnelli at the moment.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm trying to teach her everything I can about Liza with not Liza with a Z or the opposite. But yeah, so if she turns out half as successful as you, I'm going to keep going with it.
Oh, please. Like, your kid's going to be just fine. Renee, like, yeah. You've done ample amount of brainwashing and everything, so it's gonna be just fine. Yeah,
exactly.
Like,
yeah,
no, it's great. Like, I think that you can only do that from a young age, because sometimes, you know, I do meet creatives in the space that I think got into it at, I would say, a much relatively later stage. Like, they sort of only got into pop culture or design and stuff at like 18, 19, like late teens. And I think at that point, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes it's like, oh, that's a little bit late, actually. So, because by the time I was 18 or 19, like 75% of my body was made out of Hollywood movies, you know what I mean? Like that kind of a thing. So it's going to be the same thing for your daughter as well. When she grows up, she's just going to have, you know, she's going to understand, or she's going to see.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know that you're well down the path of working with AI, but kind of one of my grudges with AI is, it's not a grudge, it's no one's fault, but the internet's only like 50 years old. And so the world, you know, the history of the world hasn't been uploaded enough to it.
Correct.
So it hasn't got enough of a resource to sip from. And I just wish we could, you know, put the whole, I mean, it's controversial, but, you know, if we could just put all of the libraries up onto the internet so it could, and index them, I think we'd get better AI.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a very interesting point, because, you know, I'm working with some directors hate AI, but the director that I'm working with, you know, right now, he loves it, but it's like, it's very interesting that you made that reference to what AI references, right? Because we worked on a City of Dreams shoot, because it's the underwater Cirque du Soleil thing. So we were shooting, we're on the shoot for that. And I was there while he was writing the pitch. I was just basically his pen and typing everything up. And I couldn't help but notice the difference between what happens when you traditionally earn the knowledge compared to just looking stuff up. Because I could have pumped out the same pitch, but it would have taken me 10 more hours. It was because he's been to art school, he's like masters in art, like all these incredible accolades, he could just stand there, walk around, and just say like, oh, reference this photo shoot, reference this mythology, reference this literature, reference this. And it's because it's like he had earned it in a different way. And what's more fascinating was that, you know, I was back in Hong Kong and we're clearing out, moving some of his things in from one of his studios to another one. And I was going through like nearly 20 years worth of magazines and books and stuff, and I would like pull out a magazine and it was the exact photo shoot he was referencing. And so like it was, and he was saying that actually someone like him is much better at using AI because he knows exactly what direction to give it and knows exactly where to draw the references from. So it's like, it's very interesting that you bring that up because I just wouldn't know what to prompt it in a lot of the time in the way that he could tell me what to do or even just reference these things. So it is like something that we've been working on a lot. And interestingly enough, him and Ridley Scott had a meeting with Sora AI as consultants as well for the video, language to video modeling as well. So they're very much amongst it. And they do agree. It's really what you're referencing too. So, yeah.
Yeah, and knowing the history as well, it's critical and crucial. And I think creatively, it really gives you the jump. Like it's, you know, creativity, like design on all levels is it's a competitive industry, and anything that can give you the jump. And it's certainly noticed, like looking over your career and all your job roles, is you're a natural strategist, and you know I do design strategy, but I work in commercial interiors. And I think that's the joy of the strategist is we don't just want to, like we're not happy with it looks good at the end. We need to know how smart we've made it. Like this was chosen for that to reference to this. And if it doesn't all circle back to the end, I feel like that's why my presentations take so long to make, because I have to do some trick thing where I lay out the problem and I come up with a solution and I give all the, and I take you the long way and I stitch it all up and bring it together. And it's this ta-da. And it's such a good feeling. And I get the same hunch that you're a bit of it, like that's kind of your jam.
Absolutely. I'll reference one of the earlier conversations that we've had years ago as well when it comes to this. So a lot of it's to do with storytelling, right? Especially on the way that you've always been obsessed with, like you've told me this before, you take a long time with your presentations and stuff because you want that satisfaction from it too. But the thing that I remember you talking to me about the most was theatricality of things and how, like, you know, a lot of this is to do with storytelling. So when you go into a Rolex store, you love the fact that they put on their white gloves and then they pull it out like it's radioactive or something. And yeah, like this, it's all part of it, right? Because we're talking about, we felt as we're talking about like theater, if people love it or don't love it, is there like as much of a demand for it? And you were saying, but like you love how so much theatricality has gone into like retail merchandising and this sort of thing. And it was like this conversation about how it's so fun, like, because of course, back to how we're talking about watches and consumer items and stuff, but we're talking about how we love the sort of like laissez-faire around it in terms of like that kind of theatricality. Like that stuff is cool, because the other day my friend and I were walking past a watch store, and there was like a Jacob and Co. Bugatti Tourbillon, and I was like, I think it was $500,000 Australian dollars, but it was just sitting in the window in kind of like plastic, and it was just like, we were thinking like, dude, it looks like you could have bought this watch in Bali, and like that was like, you know, like, but for some reason a plain Jane Rolex, once you put those white gloves on and everything, it's like the experience feels, you know, a lot more personable or, you know, novel. Yeah, changes something in you. So yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah.
Oh, I'm still banging on about it to this day. Like, and I always talk about, I mean, certainly back with retail, the POS is the temple. Like where you are so into the product, you want to give them your cash. Like this is the pinnacle moment for everybody involved. I'm the customer. I'm going to get a dopamine hit. I'm going to get an adrenaline rush. I'm going to get to hold something. The merchant gets to make some cash. You know, whoever crafted it, you know, their product's validated. And then you go to a very fancy computer store and they rest your $8,000 laptop right on the edge of the desk while they're chatting away, and you've got your Amex out, they're waving it around, talking. Anyone could and you're like, no. like I would get more, I get more reverence buying pancakes from Denny's than.
Exactly. I mean, like, there's small things as well. Like, I don't know, you may have heard this, but I heard that Apple stores, their laptops, their screens are put on a certain angle, so it makes it when you look at it, you have to push it up or something like that. Because when apparently, like, the psychology behind it is when you touch it, you get more of a connection. And it's like,
Yes.
yeah, so all this stuff goes into it. And I think, honestly, because of our conversations like that years ago, it's something I certainly pay attention to a lot more. Like, because I didn't know anyone that worked in your space. And then when you'd show me like renderings and stuff and like, you know, all these amazing things that you'd worked on, it was like, yeah, how do people create that feeling of me wanting to come back and, you know, give them my money? And it's like that feeling from even the actual store, like, is strong enough that it makes me feel like I'm taking a piece of that back home with me, you know. So yeah.
Yes, and that's, you know what it is on, and I think where our paths cross with what we create, it's not the reality that we're creating, it's the illusion. And it's the same, you know, with like content creation. You know, obviously, you know, if I'm watching a film, I obviously know it's not real, but I don't want to be reminded during that 2 hours, you know, I want the lights down, I'm going to need the comfy chair, and I'm, you know, in the film for that 2 hours. And it's the illusion, and not breaking the illusion is the gift of the craftsperson.
I agree. Yeah. That's, you know, or at least or every time you pick up that Birkin bag or something, that illusion comes back, or you feel like you're a part of it, right? So,
yeah.
Funnily, you know, funny thing I heard, just on a side note, I heard that Birkin bags increase in value by 14% every year, like beating out all stocks and gold and stuff. So.
And minerals, yeah, 100%. The ROI on luxury goods, oh my God, don't even get me started. And it's such a good test case for me because I don't have a Birkin and Chris has a Porsche. So, you know.
Perfect.
We'll see who wins this race. There's a few brands, like there's mega brands that I adore. Hermes is one of them, McDonald's is one of them, and Nike is like, I adore those three. They're so clever.
That could be my top three. Yeah, it's like Apple, Nike, Hermes, and probably. Yeah.
I love it. Now, I need to ask on behalf of layman's, because I don't get it. You manage creative direction for a blockchain game, well, a few of them. In layman terms, what is a blockchain game?
Okay, so with blockchain, to be fair, it's basically like this big filing system that's been created anonymously. And so essentially, like any information or any sort of transactions that you'd be able to make on a game or even with your own data will be filed transparently, essentially. This is like the most simple way that I can explain it to myself, because to say that I'm very, very big in Web3 is not the best version of what I do. It's because it's more like I work amongst people. The way that our company sort of looks at it is that make something fun and that looks good first, and we can sort of worry about the back end blockchain and all that sort of thing afterwards. But essentially, I guess you could say, well, I am in it because I do like the idea of it, like all your data becomes your own data. You'll be able to sell that data to, you know, at your own sort of execution, and, you know, your profiles, or like say your Uber profile or something, it's not worth anything at this point. But then, you know, after you've gotten a lot of loyalty points or something like that, you might be able to sell that profile on. So those are the kind of, like, I guess, advantages that I do like from something like blockchain gaming or like Web3 gaming. And then, of course, there is this element that you can actually earn a currency or a digital currency while playing them too. But to be fair, that kind of thing is like very much a second priority to us. Like, we would rather just make something fun that looks good, build a very interesting world and universe around that. And I think the fancy jargon for it today is, like, they call it transmedia. So different sorts of media that basically drive everything back to the project, which is like, you know, digital comic books or like memes or like, you know, other things that might not just be your regular posting on socials and stuff too, especially when you're doing a game and can do so much storytelling around it as well. So it is good because imagine after like a long time after building up your profile in a game and earning a lot of digital currency on it, or like, you know, amassing a garage of cars or other assets, you will be able to not only use that to create digital current or like earn digital currency. Like, say you're new to the game and you didn't have a good car to drive in the race, like I would be able to like lease you that car, and then you'd have to pay me like a certain amount or a percentage of your winnings and this kind of a thing too. So all of this is actually quite attractive, I think, for a lot of different ages. But I think the problem is that so many of these kinds of projects have come out in the early stages of, or the big like kind of hype of cryptocurrency and Web3. A lot of them were just, these projects were not put together well, as people would say, like rug pulls, getting a lot of people to invest in the project and then the project never coming to fruition. So that's kind of been, I would say, put a bit of a damper on the industry as a whole in a lot of ways. But I think it's also very similar to the early ages of the internet. There was a time when everyone was using different kinds of code or different kinds of platforms, and everyone was trying to figure out what would be the best standard and stuff. And so from what I can tell and what I've been told and the information that I have, there's like this fight for that at the moment in Web3. Like, what code are we going to use? What chains are we going to use? What networks are we going to use? Because this is kind of a scary thought. My friends in tech and IT, they always tell me that the whole internet is held together appallingly. Like,
I can imagine sticky tape and hope.
Exactly. They said that it's like, imagine going to like your plumbing and opening it up and finding that there are band-aids and paper clips and all this. And like he said, they would say it's like held together like that. So they want to be able to, I think, you know, not have as much of that sort of thing and have a lot more transparency and, you know, less of that sort of like, I couldn't say like unstable, but like a more rigid infrastructure.
Well, yeah, and I heard once someone, I'm not going to get it right, but someone referred to the cloud and said the cloud is like the photocopier is drunk at the Christmas party, randomly copying anything that comes in its way. Like that, you know, it's not quite a...
Yeah, that's how I feel about it sometimes, yeah, for sure. But I don't use the cloud that much with my own personal stuff. I always keep everything on hard drives and phones. Yeah,
I know. Because once I started, you know, when I needed to, you know, like when I reached out to you to do, you know, this interview, and I was, you know, touring the internet looking for, you know, sideways stuff about you. You have a very light online presence, my friend.
Yes, I think it's because it's always like a flip-flop, like should I be posting more, should I not be? And it's like, I find that when I'm busy, I don't post much. So when I'm posting more, it usually means that I have less work or this kind of thing too, or like a bunch of things have just wrapped up. But a few people have asked me to do more things like this, actually. So I think that it might be something that I'll be definitely looking into doing a lot sooner. But it comes down to like what direction, what aim, and then like, I mean, getting it to this point, at least, at the very least, of having it consistent and the branding and having it easy just to set up and like ABC 1, 2, 3, go. Like that's, I think a lot of people don't realize that the back end of organizing something like this is actually can be quite a headache as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a familiar chant that I say at least once a day, and it's nothing is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just, when you're at work, every project, you're like, you just want to lay down at least once a day. I want to lay my head on the desk and be like, just want to cry. Like this is, but yeah, you know, you put some lipstick on, you keep going, but nothing is easy.
That sounds good. I might try that next time as well. Put some lipstick on. No, like, but it's true. Like, I mean, I was sort of like complaining about the situation before or whatever, but then it's sort of like where I want to go. If I can't handle this part of it, I really don't deserve to get the things that I want in life if I can't overcome this part of the hurdle and stuff, right? So, yeah, it's just that while I'm in it, it's always like, I hate this, I don't want to be, but then, yeah. And it always feels completely worth it once things come to fruition, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's Ruth, someone has the famous quote, comfort and growth cannot coexist. So if you're uncomfortable, you're obviously growing, and that's, yeah. And I know, because we were speaking earlier, and I know you've got speculative projects on the go, and plus Web3, like, that's the thing when people talk about, they talk about the same way as they talk about generation labels. They're like, well, they make it out like someone's released an update for the internet, like we're at Web 2.0, now it's Web 3, and it's organically growing. It's not like there's, or maybe there are, but I can't see them, puppeteers. And same with the generations, like when they get labelled, I'm like, that gets done retro. We don't plan ahead for the alpha generation, or kind of gets made up on the fly, but people take it so seriously. And I'm like, this is all made up, don't you? Like, bless you.
Well, it's all arbitrary and stuff, right? Yeah. No, I get what you mean. And yeah, I think that it is interesting because as many people as I talk to, they always say that they don't want to be put into a box. But a lot of people do. Their actions often go the opposite way. Like, I'm often meeting people that tell me what sort of a Sarah Myers-Briggs personality profile they are. And it's like, I'm not sure why people are so obsessed with this, because it really does put you into, trying to define yourself like that.
As soon as with that, but also I think the same thing applies, is when someone tells me they're easygoing, I'm like, thanks for the heads up, you're obviously not, because easygoing people don't tell you they're easygoing because they're easygoing. And heads up, you will never catch me calling, I'm not easygoing. Like, I'm highly strung, I'm high maintenance, I'm not easygoing. But when someone says, oh yeah, I'm easygoing, I'm like, oh, good Lord, thanks for that, across the street. Because it's the same thing once you say, I can't be put in a box. I'm like, who's even talking about boxes? There's no time to explain, get on the llama.
Get on the llama. I like that. Yeah.
You were talking before about traversing, working in Australia, working in Hong Kong. Can you share, like, your experiences with the best or the worst of either, like culturally or, industry-wise, what it's been like working between the two?
So compared to working in Australia, depends what kind of company I'm working for, I think. In Australia, it seems to be a lot more regulated, like in terms of this is the time that we start, this is the time that we finish. If I do a Zoom call with an Australians at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, they've often come in their pajamas and stuff like that too. It's got nothing to do with the fact that if Australians work hard or not. It is just a different culture. Like, I'd heard, but I don't know if this is true, that like Australians might work like less hours or something, but they work like hard too, because it's still competitive there. So I think I'll start with the best thing about working in Hong Kong, actually. I think that's easier. Everything can get done here. It's kind of like, if you ask someone how to get something or get in touch with someone, it's usually a conversation of, how do I make this happen? Like, whether it's money or whether it's like going somewhere or meeting someone, something. There's a very big hustle culture here. So like, once I was producing a concert and then we needed like cables at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and they were like 60 meters long and stuff. And it's like, you can call someone that can call someone that will get someone out of bed. And, a lot of the time, that sort of thing, like, they're willing to have this sort of hustle. And I think, that's just because the government is like such a low tax rate, so there's not much welfare or anything. So this is good, and like, everything is very close in Hong Kong, which I love. It's really convenient. So it's about the same size as Hobart, but there are like 7.5 million people here. So if I need something, if I need equipment, if I need to meet someone, it's never that far for me to go, and it's always very manageable. So I really like that aspect of it. I think that the problem, so those are the things that I really love about Hong Kong, is the efficiency and the hustle culture. Very, very good. Like, most people are willing to have conversations about things. I think the worst thing about Hong Kong here is that a lot of the work culture is spoon-fed. So there's a lot of like spoon-feeding people instructions. There's not a lot of improvisation. It's like, I heard that Tom Cruise has a saying on his set where he always says, don't be careful, be competent. And it's kind of like, I'm a little bit more like that sometimes. Like, take the initiative. Sometimes it's cheaper to ask for an apology rather than it is for permission. But it's kind of like, a lot of people will be happy to criticize and stuff, but they'll just stand by on the side and not take the chance themselves. So I've found that a lot of the time I can be the one taking the chance. Like, and then seeing the way people would respond to what happens to me first, kind of a thing. There's a lot of that kind of culture in Hong Kong, I think, but at the same time, it sort of goes both ways because, then if you do want to stand out, it does make it easier for you. But then again, there's always risk in that as well. So it's probably the best and worst things, because sometimes I also just need a team that executes exactly what I say, and I don't want any questions asked. So sometimes that's better in Hong Kong as well. So it's just a different balance of things. In Australia, I love the fact that a lot of the time we can have conversations about things. I can get to a meeting and we can have a little bit of a chinwag first, or just it's more about, are we on the same page? It's a bit more friendly, I would say. I think because in Australia, and it can be a bad thing, there's a little bit of the tall poppy syndrome. But then at the same time, I think culturally it sort of keeps everyone in a bit of check. Like my mates back in Australia won't let me just start going on the internet and bragging and talking crap to people and this sort of thing. It's they don't really let you get away with bullshit back home. So I think that because of that, everyone feels as though they're a bit more on the same page. So it's easier. I like that about Australia. There's less of a classism sort of a thing, I would say. Whereas in Hong Kong, it's a little bit more noticeable sometimes, just because it is more materialistic here. Yeah. And I wouldn't say that in a bad way. It's just kind of the way it is. It's a business hub, So I really love that about Australia. Just being from the West, we are a lot more independent. So, I can rely a little bit more on the common sense, and I can rely on them to put a few more dots together in that sense. And culturally, it's the same for me because I grew up in Australia. That means it's nice to have just being able to refer to some things from Australian culture or history, or that's always really fun. Even things growing up with things like cricket. I'm not a big cricket fan at all, but being able to talk a little bit about it with guys back at home and stuff, or I went to the rugby sevens recently, and being able to talk a little bit about this stuff back at home, it's really nice. I think that it always puts me in a better mindset to deal with them, because it's kind of we clicked on a couple of things, and then it's just a lot easier to start the journey, I think. But then with Hong Kong, I always find that there's a lot more double checking. Yeah. But that's just because I'm still an expat here. Yeah.
It kind of goes back to the stuff we're talking about AI as well. So whenever I've traveled, and, I'm a recovering people pleaser, and a part of the trick of being a people pleaser is you're a shapeshifter, and you also learn nuggets about people from watching them and monkey magic from around the world. And especially with cricket, every time I've traveled, when I go to countries where I know cricket's a big culture, I'll just throw out 3 cricketers' names just to build instant rapport. Or wherever, if I come across someone who's from Hong Kong, I'm oh, I lived in Hong Kong, or anything, this mutual common ground. And the reason I stitch it back to AI is, I think, this is random, I think it helps to be an empath to use AI and to use the internet, because you have to think, you're not just thinking, this is what I want. I'm thinking, whoever wrote this code, how would they receive this information? What do I need to say to get what I need out of this? I'm a good sleuth online. I'm always trying, I'm shape-shifting into the coders. I'm trying to as much understand how they speak, and I'm trying to speak to it that way.
Yeah. No, absolutely, I agree. It's funny thing you bring up cricket. I was remotely managing a team in India at one point, and Australia had just thrashed India the night before, and it was it's just so much fun starting the call with, so who watched the cricket? Yeah. Yeah. But and then, but you're right, understanding some of those cultural nuances is super important. I'd actually worked on some, Bollywood properties in Hong Kong for production, and, being able to share that with the Indian team, it was straight away they gave me respect. So it's cause there's such a reverence for film in the countries, it was it gave me an instant in. So that was really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really nice. Years ago, I used to work as a flight attendant at Emirates, and
Yeah, you were saying, yeah.
yeah, it's a tough job. You've got to smile and be nice and in high heels with lipstick. It's not for the faint-hearted. And sometimes you can stride out, because you're on the stage after they've sat down and watched their first movie and had their snack. They're just watching, like there's nothing else to do but either watch more movies or watch service. And so sometimes you would just try and land the joke culturally through separate cultures. And you could be really saucy to certain cultures and get away with it. And you'd be really riding the edge. Like once a French couple were like, excuse me, my TV's not working. And I was like, tant pis, like, too bad. And then they looked at me and then I laughed and they laughed. And I was like, I'll sort it out. And then other times it would backfire. We were boarding a flight and everyone was stuck and this dad started, complaining to me. And I was stuck too. And I said, I don't know what's wrong. I'm having the time of my life. And it did not go over well and I had to apologise profusely. But yeah, culturally it's fun to see how, find common ground, but then bring your own brand to it and see how much you can land it or not. And Hong Kong's great for that because there's so many cultures there.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good way to put it. Seeing what sticks and making, I think the part that you mentioned about putting your own brand on it or putting your own spin on it is probably the most important thing, because otherwise a lot of that stuff can come off as not very genuine if it's not your own take on it or not your own version of it. So I think that's one of the key things that I would see people miss out on. They might talk about the things, but it's not their opinion. It's not their take on it. And then that straight away makes it not very personal. To me, a boring person is someone that I could just swap out with someone else and I'd get the same sort of answers. If you're just telling me about what, the agenda is or towing the party line and stuff, a lot of that stuff is really boring. I want your opinion on this, or not just a regurgitation of something else. So I think that's very important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love, even with creative pictures and stuff, I find, you can really bring across anything in your creative pitch if you can, underpin it with why. Because sometimes you can come up with the result, but without the underpinning with the strategy and the why behind it that's rock solid, the client just doesn't feel good. They're like, this is shaky. I don't know if I can get into this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, it all comes back to the storytelling part of it, though, yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of, may I ask if you have any pet hates that you see out in the market with people's marketing or their branding or their content creation?
I don't know. It's hard for me to hate. I don't really think I've come across anything. All right, maybe this sort of thing is what I'm talking about. It's super dirty marketing, but you probably don't see it in Australia that much. But it's a website will post a sort of nearly not safe for work picture as part of their thumbnail, and then they'll say that it was a mistake or something. Stuff like this I hate. For the most part, I don't really hate anything. I think that as long as people are having a go.
Oh, you're so nice. I could reel off 15 things right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's there's probably stuff I've seen that I don't like, or or maybe they're not that great at editors, or maybe they're not that good at designers, but probably spelling mistakes or this sort of thing, especially in Hong Kong, a lot of the stuff will have English text or English graphics with it too. And I think that it's not the out of the utmost laziness that you just don't do your spell checks and this kind of thing. But maybe why don't you tell me what you hate, because I probably hate similar things too. Yeah,
it's just thinking about it, I hate on a PR sense, I hate it when people use the word thrilling with thrilled. Thrilled is having a baby and being in a race car. They're literally thrilling things. I've done both. They're thrilling. And when people are thrilled to announce I'm like, really thrilled? Easy with the thrilled. And I like adjectives. I'm not a tight ass with adjectives or anything like that. But I
remember you hate dynamic.
Oh. My God, because it's so over. It's not even, the overuse, but I'm like, you're selling yourself short. You're like, Henny Penny, the sky's falling. You're crying wolf too much. Just take it down a notch, say the statement, and let that be the mic drop. Because once I hear that's why, with AI, I like the AI visual stuff I can get behind. I understand, I can see how it's so fascinating. But the written stuff, I don't even want to read emails that people wrote barely, let alone a computer wrote it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's so hammy, it's so camp. Like it's so.
That's the best way to put it. Hammy and camp. Like, yeah.
You know, it's oh god, it's too smooth. Like you know that
No,
guy that's just good looking and never kind of struck. You know, it hasn't gone through
so
the ring of
clinical.
fire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and it's just
clinical.
it's too much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, this director that I've been working with, he talk about a lot. He's like, human is imperfection, which is actually beautiful,
Which is
and
perfection
so,
in a like roundabout
yeah,
way.
exactly.
It is.
It's often this conversation, and I remember when ChatGPT, especially like these text generation models first came out, one of the people on my team, all she wanted to do was use it, and I'm like, this is like, it was leading to a big backlash on our online community, and so because they could tell straight away, people can tell what's real, but it's like with anything else. It's like when auto tune first came out for singing, like a lot of people hated it, and you'd get purists that like, but like a lot of what we hear today is like really well executed auto tune, and it's become this great tool. Actually, just don't let it use you, I guess, if you can do that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. You mentioned earlier, and this, I wonder if this stitches into it, about viral videos. Has the formula changed since you've been in the game?
Not like in a in the basic sense is not really. It's like we often do this thing called a purple cow, which is like the first frame that you should see should be something ordinary mixed with the extraordinary. So it's like there's nothing strange about a cow, but there's something strange about a purple cow. So like that's usually the first frame you try and like show people. But then editing style has changed, and everything like this has changed a lot. People are becoming much more sophisticated in terms of what they can edit, but also like memes are becoming very layered now. Jokes are becoming very layered now, especially because, the past 10, 15 years, everyone's been doing these online jokes or memes, or there've been these trends. So like, I wouldn't say the principles have changed that much, but the style of things has definitely changed. It's definitely become more sophisticated. Yeah, it's like, they're becoming the people that are making content are very good are like very nuanced now. Like I wouldn't say that it's changed. I would say that it's getting better, in my opinion. Yeah.
I haven't heard the term purple cow, but I get like it's nails it.
Yeah. Because the technology is making everything so democratized for everyone now. And it's like people that wouldn't have had a chance to create or like try different things are all getting a shot now. And they're just proving that like some of these kids are better than some of these veterans out here in terms of like the ideas that they have and stuff too. It's like, do you watch Formula One?
Do I? Of
Yeah.
course. It doesn't get better for sport than me. Fast cars,
Yeah.
tick. International sponsors, tick. Lots of money, tick. Monaco, tick. Like,
Yeah.
what's not to love?
So F1 is my least favorite car sport. Yeah. Because the sample size is so small from the drivers. Like,
Oh,
Lewis
yeah,
Hamilton
nepotism
is,
of the tits.
yeah, like Lewis Hamilton is not as dominant of an athlete as an Usain Bolt. Like, think of everyone can run, but not everyone can drive a car, right? So it's kind of like, and then I think for how the way like mobile editing and all this sort of thing is like becoming, it's like we're seeing a lot more democratization. So like, I still think the cream rises to the top. You have to mine through it for it, of course, but like, it's giving everyone a shot, and we're seeing like incredible results from it. So yeah, its principles are the same, but everyone's getting better at it. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
God, I love that. Because the reason I love F1 is, and maybe it's the reason you hate it, but I love the politics. And I love how, right now it's actually a bit of a
The
crossroad.
Kardashian of sports, right?
Kris Jenner is my spirit. Like, are you kidding?
Yeah,
She is
she's
life
great.
goals.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, look at my hair. It's not by accident.
I saw a picture of her. What is she, in her 60s now?
Yeah.
Is she 70 yet? Yeah.
She's
incredible.
galloping to 70.
Yeah.
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 She's the business. So right now we're saying Formula One's a funny one because it used to be it was privateers, and privateers were the heroes, the Jack Brabhams, the Bruce McLarens back in the day. And then all of a sudden privateers, for whatever reason, it flipped, and then privateers are seen as buying their seat. And the sponsored ones have earned their seats. And we're certainly seeing that here now. And I think you can tell, especially at the moment, is if they've earned their seat, if they're not performing, they're out very quickly.
That's cool then. Yeah.
And it's interesting, and so it's see-through, it's transparency. So even within this multi-billion-dollar sport, there's still politics, there's still snootiness, there's still undertow.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. I would love to go to the F1 for sure. And the new F1 movie is like one of the movies I'm really looking forward to the most. But I think it's just, I feel like the sample size isn't big enough for me to like be like really, yeah. But everything else about it is incredible. It's just that part of it irks me a little bit. Because I feel it's kind of anti-sport. Like with soccer in like the UK and stuff, you can be like a tiny little city and like you can win the whole thing. You can't do that in F1. Yeah. But like that's just a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it is complicated because I think the reason Australia has less of a class system is because of our love of sport. And talent is discriminatory. Like you don't know where it's going to sprinkle. So you could have a king and a pauper line up at the 100 and the pauper could win, and that's just the rub. And we value that. So I think that helps level the playing field.
It's interesting, like even with my friends from America and stuff, they would say that maybe Australians don't specialize in sport as much, but everyone plays it. Like, if you went to Australian school, you had to play sport. Like, there's no sitting out or anything. So they sort of like that the sporting culture is really big there. It's like one of my friends, he came over and he was here with his fiance from New York. And we went to the beach and they had a ping pong table. They had like a small tennis court, a basketball hoop, and like a bunch of other stuff there. And like my friends, because we were in high school together, we were just playing like everything, like one after the other. And she was super shocked that we had decent coordination with every sort of thing that we went on. And it's just like, oh, it's because like in Australia, we had to play field hockey, we had to play basketball, it didn't really matter. So yeah, I definitely agree with the sport thing. It's a really good thing. And the swimming as well. Massive thing. Yeah.
And especially as well in Melbourne, like sport's huge. But just going back to your point, like, so, you know, I have an 11-year-old girl and we're talking about content creation and the layered and the nuances and the sublines is, you know, we sit every night and the three of us have dinner together and we churn through some kind of TV show. And at the moment we're watching Arrested Development, which really old. And then all of a sudden Lucille Bluth comes on and she says, I love all of my children. And then the next scene, I don't care for Job. And Isla's ears pricked up and she went forward. She was like, no. She's like, that's from Warrior Cats. There's a meme from Warrior Cats, which is this book set that she reads. And so she didn't realise, like, that's where it came from. She'd never heard of it before. And by accident, she's now peeling back the onion back to wherever they're referencing it from.
That's great, though. It's organic. It's natural for her, too. So that must make you so happy to see her, like, reacting to those sorts of things. Because a lot of kids would have that, but it flies over their head, you know. So
yeah, and the one thing I've always tried to impress on her is like just watch the fringes, watch the middle, watch the sides, watch observe. And ever since she was really little, like, you know, if we were walking down the street and someone looked a little loose approaching, I'd squeeze her little hand tighter, and I knew I was sending her a message of feel into your body, something like, I don't feel, you know, I'm not trying to scare her to death, but trying to teach her, your heart will tell you if someone, you know, you want to cross the street to get away from someone. But just on this with pop culture, moment of pride, she takes her iPad into the bathroom while she has a shower so she can listen to music. And I hear Fleetwood Mac blaring out of the bathroom.
Yeah. Madonna as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Fantastic.
My US royal. But going all over the shop, democratisation of media, I've never heard that term before. That is so genius. I love that way you put that.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's becoming a big thing, and it's because, I think it's just because some people that I've worked with, when they're doing a lot of industry standard things, especially with programs or, like, editing software, you know, for a while there's kind of, like, I guess some people would turn their nose up at anything else that's not industry standard, like using Premiere Pro or Adobe or something. But at the end of the day, it's like, you know, no one really cares how the sausage is made. It's just like whatever it takes to get it there. And, you know, like, I'm working with people that are using like a combination of all these like different ones now, like, so that they'll like use industry standard programs and stuff, but then they'll like transfer that footage onto their phone so they can do something else with it. Then they'll send it back to, so like, that's becoming really interesting as well. Like, yeah, it's made it so easy for people to do edits and like, and all this interesting stuff. I mean, I've even seen with like my younger cousins, they might like post something on Facebook or Instagram and I'm like, oh, like, what did you use to create that? Because in my mind, like, I'd never heard them talk about doing this or like designing something, but you know, like maybe they know how to describe what they see in their mind better than actually being able to put it onto Photoshop or something. So like, I really like that. And, you know, like, I've met heaps of different people with really strange or funny ideas when it comes to like stories or TV shows or movies, and like very original, except maybe they didn't know how to elaborate on that or expand on it. And, you know, these tools and stuff are actually really great for that sort of thing. And I don't think that there's any nobility in like just sticking to your guns and being a purist unless you can really afford to do it. Like, I think that that's what it's becoming. Like, you know, the last shoot that we did in Macau was big production, and the director said, honestly, this one might be the last one. Big production. I'm like, why? And he's like, AI, man. Like, we spent 2 months shooting a 15-second video. We should have been able to do this from my apartment in my pajamas. Like, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where it's heading. Yeah. It's going to be a luxury to do those things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else always crops up, like people still want to have fun and they still want to play, and going on a shoot for 2 months is fun and it is play, and people will gravitate toward that. And I get what you're saying as well around software and things. Like, I feel like I've watched the pivot because I predate the internet. And then, so I watched it, you know, I was 18 and I think I was 18 in 1996. And so I watched AOL, you know, go live, Yahoo on trams and that kind of thing. And when email addresses were called email numbers.
I didn't know that.
I know, gorgeous. And, you know, Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe got up, and I studied photography, but it was like film photography, and I missed that whole boat, and I didn't jump on, and it just got more and more complicated, and I got more and more scared. So I have just learned to become a PowerPoint master. Like, there's nothing I can't do with PowerPoint. And then I've just recently pivoted to Canva. So Chris, you know, he's on CAD, he's on Twinmotion, he's on all and sundry. He's teched up the tits, but I am like Brutus with PowerPoint, and I would like to meet the PowerPoint team to shake their hand, to be like, I get it. But there's such, in the design world, there's always been such snobbiness to PowerPoint, and people scoff, and now, you know, but in commercially, like, we have to use PowerPoint because when we're dealing with CEOs, general managers, they don't know how to open, like, they're not going to open an Illustrator or an InDesign file. Like, their PA is going to need to open our PowerPoint if they need to edit it before their presentation. So, yeah, I think that's been really fun watching. Like, yeah, and can you cope? Egoically, can you cope? Like, yeah, you can stand on ceremony, but we've been moving really quickly with new tech, with our renderings and animations. It has been life-changing, the developments. Now, like, if you can adapt, because it's adapt or die.
I mean, even some conversations that I had with you a couple of years ago, like, you're telling me that your partner would have to leave his laptop next to their bed running so it could render throughout the night, and in case anything happened, he'd have to be able to tend to it straight away. Like, you know, hopefully that's going to be less of a thing, but I don't know, footage. But then again, like, you know, assets and 3D assets and stuff are always might get big. I don't know. It's getting interesting.
Yeah, awesome. Just to wrap up, I know that you're working on a couple of film projects. Is there anything about that, like trend-wise? Are you doing with your film work, are you veering towards fiction? Are you veering towards non-fiction, documentaries? Like, can you share any genres or?
So actually, there are a couple of projects that we have on the go. One is an art house film, and it's supposed to be like psychological horror. That's very much going to be like directed very heavily in terms of everything, like costumes, like the best clothes, all this sort of thing has to be very high line. It's that director will be very obsessive with that. And then there's more of like a TV show that's more like a Peaky Blinders, which is like much more for like mainstream, and it's really much about how the Hong Kong entertainment industry became so large in the 80s and 90s. But it's interesting because a lot of it was to do with black money, like triads always involved. And this is like a little bit more sexier, I think, but we really like that. And then a documentary as well about a Hong Kong celebrity that had very big scandals back in the past, but, has since become very successful. And that would be quite easy to sell, we think. But we have to look for the right angle as well. So kind of looking at all these things coming out and like a couple of TV shows, but nothing like that I can really say out loud right now because a couple of people that we're working with and everything we have to be quiet on. So that for the film things, that's what I'm really excited about, doing writing and producing. And then the other side of things is just I'm working with a Web3 company called Hyperbolic, and I'm helping run some of their events, doing some content creation. And I have a couple of other people that I'll be just creating content for. I really want to start a podcast, so I just have no idea what I can do with it though as well. Yeah.
Do it. It is so much fun. I was saying earlier, like we've been, working flat out and around the clock, and then starting this podcast has been a breath of fresh air. Like it's delightful. So, I smashed this together really quickly. I was like literally I recorded the first interview 5 weeks ago, and then we're already up to the third one being released. Yeah, just go for it. I mean, God, I don't need to tell you, you've already got it, but and again, because we have all this like access to tech and stuff. And what's great about podcasting, it's very unperfectionist. Like it's a rambling.
You can be a lot more candid.
Yeah, and a lot more relaxed about it. It's not like, producing the news or something that's like a big deal.
Yeah. No, it's perfect.
Gorgeous. Well, thank you so much, Desmond. It has been an absolute delight.
Thank you so much, Renee. It's always nice catching up. Hopefully see you in Sydney soon.